Do we have a position battle on our hands, Broncos country? And could it come in the secondary? Welcome in, Broncos fans, to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the growing interest in this sort of cornerback two position battle between Riley Moss and Jahdae Barron. Now, I know what you might be thinking right off the bat. Don't they play different positions? Isn't Jahdae Barron a nickel corner playing on the inside? You are correct. But according to Sean Payton's most recent comments, that might be changing sooner rather than later. Now, before I break down everything, I've got to talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on with our sub numbers for our preseason sub battle. 349 subs is what we're currently at for the preseason. The Chiefs are beating us by 3. We've only got 2 days left until the very first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game. So I need all the loyal Broncos fans who have not hit that subscribe button to hit it right now, click that little bell icon, and lock us in so that we can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So who's going to get that cornerback 2 spot? Just throwing it up there hypothetically. Let that simmer for a second. Let it breathe. You might be thinking right out of the gates, it's going to be Riley Moss. And I would tend to agree with you, at least for week 1, because it is currently his spot, right? That's exactly where he's going to be playing come week 1, is outside corner on the opposite end of Pat Surtain. But the more and more you hear about Jahdae Barron, and the more and more that Sean Payton glows about the Broncos' first-round draft pick in 2025, the more and more that I'm thinking to myself, I just don't know if that is going to always be the case. Now, let's talk about Riley, the player. Let's go back to 2024 for a second. It wasn't an awful year, not by any stretch of the imagination. Got his first interception, 8 PBUs, 86 tackles, a PFF grade of 60.5, which isn't great, but it's not terrible either. Riley Moss is a fairly decent starting caliber cornerback too. I have no issues if you were to name Riley Moss your starting outside corner today and for the rest of the season. I think there's a lot to his game that you can be very impressed with. Let's start with the pros. And he's an explosive vertical leaper. Going up for those contested catches with wide receivers, big strength of his. He's a hard-hitting cornerback. Throws his body weight around with reckless abandon, which, again, can kind of get you into some trouble at time to time, but for the most part, I like my corners to be a little bit more physical than passive. And he maintains inside leverage really, really well. Something that when he was coming out of college, he actually needed to learn a little bit how to do better, but really kind of came into his own. I can remember one specific play when they were playing the Buccaneers, where he kept his inside leverage on a Mike Evans out route, and he just played the ball perfectly. Was super, super excited to see that type of playmaking ability from him, especially in the strengths of his game. Now let's talk about the cons a little bit, because can't talk about the pro without the con. Well, he bites a little bit too hard on fakes, a little bit too often, meaning if a wide receiver throws a head fake or a juke, he bites on a little bit too aggressively. He does lose ground on double breaking routes as well. So that's something that he definitely needs to work on, as well as when you see a receiver making a double break. So if he breaks out to the left and then cuts back to the middle on a post, you cannot get beat on that first or second break. And then, like I said, can get a little bit of aggressive on jumping routes. But for the most part, I'm okay with him being more aggressive than non-aggressive. He also got significantly better in terms of his opposing quarterback passer rating from 2023 to 2024. In 2023, it was over 100. Last year, 95.4. Now, again, you want to see this number below 90, but for the most part, you can live with a 95.4 passer rating when Riley Moss is getting targeted. It basically means that when Moss gets targeted, quarterbacks are pretty average, when targeting that side of the field. So let me ask you point blank. Should Riley Moss start as cornerback 2 week 1? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes. I think he should, at least week 1. But, as you'll see here in just a little bit, that could very much change, because we're going to talk about Jahdae Barron. Now, before we get into talking about what Sean Payton had to say and what all of his teammates had to say about him during training camp, I have to give you a major shout out and sponsor to our friends over at Ethos. Look, guys, life insurance should be something that you never, ever have to question. As someone who is getting not only engaged, I've been engaged for about a year and a half, but as someone who's going to get married and start having kids, I can tell you right now, I don't play around with this stuff at all. It is something that I need to be considering right away. And that's where Ethos comes in. You can get covered and protected in minutes with rates at less than $23 a month. Ethos is revolutionizing the insurance industry with a 100% online process and can provide protection for you and your loved ones. You can get life insurance in as little as 10 minutes with Ethos. They've got no medical exams. Just answer a few easy health questions online. They're 100% online and hassle-free, making that process super easy to apply. You can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house. And like I said, as someone who's about to start having kids, it's at the very top of my priority list. So here's what they did. They want you to go get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL daily. That's ethos.com/NFL daily. Get your free quote and protect your family at ethos.com/NFL daily. You can also find that in the comments and description of today's video. So let's move back on to the topic at hand, which is now Jahdae Barron, because the more and more that I read about Jahdae, the more and more I'm convinced that the Broncos really want to see him play a little bit outside. Maybe not right away, but they're going to work in reps for him for sure. Sean Payton came out point blank at the press conference and said, yeah, we're going to get him some reps outside corner. We're going to start him inside because that's where he's most comfortable. It's his most natural position, but we can guarantee that he's going to work on the outside. Does that mean that he's going to be taking Riley Moss's job right away? No, not necessarily. But let's talk a little bit more about Jahdae Barron, the player, because I feel like we haven't done that since he's gotten drafted. He's got unbelievable fluidity in coverage. He is so silky smooth in his game. It just captures the eye test perfectly. Super high football IQ and instincts, which at corner you definitely need. If you don't have good instincts as a corner, you're never going to be good. And he's a playmaker. 3 career touchdowns to his name. Now, he is slightly undersized for an outside corner, which doesn't work in his favor, but you could always put on weight. And he's got average top-end speed, right? So even though he ran a very blazing quick 40-yard dash at the combine, we're talking about top speed at the very end of the route for an extended period of time. It's just so-so. And he can be challenged sometimes vertically, meaning on those deeper routes, he's not nearly as good as he is keeping everything in front of him. But those are peanuts compared to the unbelievable amount of talent that he brings. I've said it multiple times on this channel. He is and was my top corner on this draft class, or in this draft class, excuse me. He's bigger and stronger than Maxwell Hairston, who got drafted by the Buffalo Bills, who's already hurt. He is more versatile than a guy like Will Johnson. And for a guy like Trey Amos, he's more explosive and faster. So if you wanted all of the great traits from all of the 2025 top corners that came out, it would be Jahdae Barron. And, by the way, if you needed him to play safety in a pinch, he could. He's played a little bit of safety. At least he did last year at Texas. And his numbers the last couple of seasons have been outstanding. This is a guy that was one of the best defensive players on the field for the Texas Longhorns. Now, Zach Stevens was kind of on this a little bit earlier, kind of echoing the sentiments that I just gave you, is that he's going to start off competing on the inside, which is his most natural position, that nickel corner spot. But then Sean Payton said, we're going to move him to outside a little bit. So do you hope that Barron stays at the inside cornerback position or goes onto the outside? You could, whatever flavor of the day you're kind of feeling. But he does fit the mold for a multitude of defensive personnel packages, whether that be the nickel corner or the outside corner. I have no issue with him playing either way. So my final thoughts on the whole matter would be that Moss will end up starting outside week 1. And don't get this twisted. I'm not saying that Moss loses his job, but I bet you see Barron at least make a start on the outside, maybe covering a guy like T. Higgins week 4 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, it would and could be a rotation of those two. And you're also forgetting that Jaquan McMillan is in this mix as well. I don't know what the rotation is going to look like. That's kind of the fun part of all of this, is that you've got so much talent now in the secondary. You could go with a multitude of different rotations, and it would be just as fine either way. The only one you're not taking the job of is Pat Surtain, and you could pretty much take that to the bank. So I've asked this question on the channel before, and I'm going to ask it to you one more time. Where should Jahdae Barron play? Type I for inside, type O for outside. Right now, week 1, heading into the season, I'm saying inside. But like I said, week 4, 5, 6, and maybe beyond, if he shows a real prowess for playing on the outside, why not give him a shot? Before we actually end today's episode, just a quick reminder about our sub battle that is going on for the next 2 days. That's it, my friends. So we'll give you an update as soon as those numbers officially come in and how we fared against the Chiefs. Until next time, my name is Moose. Be cool.